Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lipford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. This week, we help a homeowner out that's really frustrated because they put in a new pool. They have a beautiful coping around the pool, but adjacent to that is an area that's about 20 foot by 20 foot. It's an old concrete slab that has been painted. And you know what happens when that takes place? After a while, the paint starts peeling. What do? We'll give them a few suggestions on it. And we actually were able to see a picture of what that scenario is. And Joe, that picture was not a very pretty picture, was it?
No, the rest of the yard looked great, but that's why we say never paint concrete. You know, it's never going to last, especially outdoors, but it's never going to last. And unfortunately, this particular homeowner is going to have to remove all that paint and get down to the bare concrete.
That's right.
We also heard from a homeowner who has one of the largest islands I've seen in the kitchen, and it's all butcher block, and it's beautiful. Butcher block is very popular, not so much for the entire countertops, but certainly for baking areas or for islands. And her concern was, how do I seal it? She's been using mineral oil on it, and we're going to give her some tips on how to put another finish on it and what to do now that it has been mineral oiled over the last several years.
And also our friend Julie Day Jones, our garden enthusiast, joins us for our Around the Yard segment. You know, this time of the year, you can really take advantage of the weather and the growth cycle by doing a number of key things to your yard and to your plants. And she's always great about just hitting the nail on the head of exactly what you need to be thinking about in your yard.
And I've got a simple solution on how to increase the storage in your garage. Do you have problems with storage space in your garage? Of course you do. Who doesn't? So I've got not only one simple solution, I'm going to share 3 different quick, simple solutions on an increasing storage in your garage.
Oh, man, I'm excited. Let's get this thing going. All righty. Well, I'll tell you what, right now we want to see if we can head to Tennessee and help out Randy with a great question about a concrete patio. Randy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Well, tell us what's going on at your house there.
We bought this house about 2 years ago. It was built in 1972, and it was a model house for a subdivision that really never got off the ground. But we're into it now, and we're starting to do some renovations, and mainly our renovations have been outside, and we added a pool area, and there's a back porch that's adjacent to the pool area that we want to do something to the concrete. And what we have noticed is it's been painted, but the paint's coming up, and we're seeing glue like they had outdoor carpet underneath the out there at one time too, and just painted over the glue. So my question is, what's the best as far as just repaint that, or do I need to sand this back down to the concrete?
Well, good question, and appreciate you sending the pictures. Your pool and the area around the pool certainly a really, really nice looking. But then when you have the green peeling paint next to it, it kind of brings it down a notch, doesn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, and about how big is this area that we're looking at in terms of the I'm looking like a light green color concrete. About how big is that?
It's from a little less than 400 square feet.
Okay. All right. So let's just say 20 by 20 for sake of even numbers there. So still a fairly sizable thing there. But I think the only way you're going, well, there's a lot of options. I'll share a couple with you, and Joe will share a couple options there. But certainly you can clean it really well and go right over it with a porcelain tile. That is one way, and probably the most expensive way to go about it. And you can get a tile that complements your existing pavers that you have around the pool. That would be one way to approach it. If you want to get the finish off on the concrete and consider the other options that you would have once you removed all of this, then, Joe, we're talking about possibly some chemical stripper and without a doubt a trip to the rental store.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Randy, and thanks for the photograph. As Danny said, this really helps. If it was a couple of spots you needed to repair, you could probably do it by hand with some hand tools or portable power tools. But it looks like you're going to have to do the whole thing. And I would just rent a grinder, They rent concrete grinders. You want the least aggressive option here because you're not trying to remove concrete, just trying to remove the finish. And I would just take it down to bare concrete. They typically accept different accessories, abrasives. One is called a coating removal tool, which certainly sounds like something you might need here because the coating would be paint or stain or something like that. And then they have a concrete prep tool, which is another abrasive. And I'm not really sure which would be most appropriate for what you have, but I would take this photograph and go to the home center and talk to a guy who's renting the equipment and ask him about what you need. And I mean, it seems like it might be a little expensive because you rent the machine. It might cost you $80 or $90 for the day, but that would be the quickest way, the easiest, is grind it down. And then you've got a clean surface to start with. And I personally would not and never recommend painting concrete. No, and now you know why.
Yeah.
You know, I would stain it. You know, if you want to tile over it, Danny said you can certainly do that. But I would probably get a masonry stain if you want to change the color of it, or just seal it. One thing I noticed, whoever poured this concrete patio did a really nice job. I see lots of either expansion joints or control joints. I can't tell from here, into about 4 foot square. So that must be in great shape, not cracking on and falling apart on you. So I think it'd be worth saving, but I would consider grinding it off.
Okay. But if I so choose tile, you said I can just clean the surface as it is?
Yeah, just as long as nothing's not, peeling off and so forth, then you would be able to, just get the big chunks of it off, make sure that it's fairly clean, and then you could go right back over it with a exterior thin set adhesive that will do a great job on it.
Okay.
Hey, I'll tell you one other thing I just thought about. Well, one of our sponsors and someone we're real excited to be affiliated with is Deitch Coatings, and that's DAICH. And one of the things they talk about is how they have a product called Roller Rock. And you're able to, again, clean it, but you roll this over the existing thing. And yes, it is a type of paint, but it's more of a coating that binds really, really well to the surface of the concrete, but it actually has stone in it. So, you could get a coloring that's similar to your pavers there. So you might want to check that one out as well, Randy, and it's DeitchCoatings.com. Really, really cool American company that I think you'll be interested to see that as yet another option.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Okay, we appreciate you being on the show and hope you have a great weekend.
Y'all too. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. All right, right now it's time for our Best New Product segment brought to you by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. There are few household tools more handy than a staple gun or tacker. But if you've used one very much, you know there's some drawbacks, especially the old designs. First, they'll wear your hands out because they're so difficult to squeeze, and most of them are pretty heavy for their size. But the new DeWalt carbon fiber tacker solves all those problems with a carbon fiber composite frame. It's just as strong as steel, but 50% lighter and also 25% easier to squeeze thanks to a brand new trigger design. Now, that's a big deal for jobs like screening in a porch. Fastening loading also can be a hassle with some tackers, but you don't have to worry about this one because it features a quick and easy bottom load design and a low fastener indicator so you know it's time to reload before you start firing blanks. It shoots both heavy-duty staples and 18-gauge brads, and the belt hook is reversible, so it's useful whether you're right-handed or left-handed. So for more information on the DeWalt carbon fiber tacker, log on to HomeDepot.com.
That is certainly a tool that could use improving.
Well, there you go. That's exactly right. It's one of those things that you pick up the old silver. We'll leave the name off of this around for forever. But you pick that thing up, and it's just like, gee whiz, come on. And I've used the electric tacker some, and if it's not too hard, that really speeds the process up and works. But this is a great improvement. You're exactly right. It needed it.
Yep. Yeah, I was using one recently to put up I was insulating the attic and putting up the rafter baffles and the insulation, and it's a lot of hand power to fire off even one staple.
Isn't that truth? We tackle everything to do with the home, inside, outside, and we always like to say your home doesn't stop at the back door. It spills right out into the backyard, so you want to make sure your yard is looking good, and that's why we are always happy to have our Around the Yard segment with our friend Julie Day Jones. Julie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here, but I have a question.
This is always...
she's turning the tables. Boy. We're in trouble.
No. I just want to know, Joe, has it finally stopped snowing in New England.
It has stopped snowing, and more importantly, it's finally stopped raining. You know,
Right.
We had such
can
a
the word
wet.
spring
Oh my God.
apply to where you are now?
Yes, yeah. There's been, but it is finally turning green and a little warmer. We're getting like consistent temperatures in the 60s and even 70s.
Good.
I mean, you're probably in the middle of the summer down there.
Well, it's getting there.
Yeah.
But now we can talk about spring without you feeling left out.
Thank you. Because usually I just sit back and listen to you guys talk about how great the weather is.
Yeah.
And the snow is falling outside my window here in Connecticut. Yeah. Well, thank you, Julie. I appreciate that.
See? Because spring is here. And in fact, summer is coming faster than we know it. Some parts of the country, it's already really hot. But now's the time to do spring stuff. This is kind of the one time of year that it's okay to mess with your azaleas. When they finish blooming, this is when you prune them. This is when you feed them. This is where you move them if you need to move them as soon as they get done blooming, because pretty quickly they're going to set the buds for next year. And if you trim them back, you're going to not have as pretty of a show next spring. So that's the big thing to do this time of year.
Yeah, that's good to know. And also, I've seen warning on packages of fertilizer and other amendments that you should not put them out when it's really, really hot. So that's probably a few of those things maybe need to be taken care of right now before it really does get hot.
That is true. Get everything fed. Another good thing to do right now is to trim back your evergreens. You just want to give it a little haircut. Don't cut it back to bare wood, but shear it back a little bit. And then you do want to do anything you're going to apply to your plants before it gets too hot. We tend to think when it's 90 degrees outside and our plants start looking a little ragged that we need to give them more TLC, but actually more fertilizer, more of everything stresses them out even more. So this is the time to get everything nice and healthy, and then you can just keep it watered over the summer when it gets really hot.
And probably kind of prime time for any aeration and adding anything to that lawn to kind of give it a little bit of a boost is probably the right time, huh?
Absolutely. This is a great time to get your lawn in order. The only caution to that is if you have had a lot of rain, you probably don't want to try to aerate if the ground is soggy because you'll end up compacting it even more. But spring and fall are great times to take care of your lawn. In the spring, both warm season grasses like St. Augustine and centipede and cool season grasses like fescue have a growing season in the spring. So regardless of the type of grass you have, you're exactly right. This is the time of year before it gets too hot to get it in tip-top shape and then raise those mower blades up, mow it as high as you can through the summer to help shade the ground and keep the ground cool and avoid the heat stress.
Julie, you had mentioned evergreens before, and I remember when we first had our home built and I was putting in some evergreen trees, I learned about the candles. And the candles are the new growth, if I remember this correctly, the new growth of these evergreen trees, and how once they put those out, you should trim them back. And you can tell which are the candles because they're very, very light green and very sort of supple, right? And you cut them back. And it seems almost counterintuitive. Like I planted this thing, it's finally growing. Now I'm chopping it back. But if you continue to do that, I have some evergreens that are just beautiful because I did that every year. Now I've since given it up. They're on their own. I got other stuff to worry about. But I did it.
Right.
I did it for the first 5 or 6 years religiously. And these are beautiful. You just trim them back. I forget. I think you cut back as much as 2/3 or half. I don't remember now. But if anybody that has an evergreen that's growing in these candles, which they call them, it definitely is a good idea to trim those back.
That's a great tip and really true for a lot of plants. And I might not be 100% accurate with my biology, but my understanding is that the plant sends growth hormone to the end of the stem to make those little shoots. And if you nip those off, that growth hormone can be dispersed along the branches and you end up filling out the plant more in the middle. So sometimes even just using your fingers and pinching off the very tip that's growing on your bushes will help it fill out in the middle, and you didn't have to do anything drastic. You didn't even need to get the clippers out. Just kind of pinch them back and keep them in shape and help them fill out.
Boy, always some great tips from our friend Julie Day Jones. So that should motivate you a little bit to get out there and get the great outdoors looking even nicer. Julie, always great to have you on board here. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Sounds good. Enjoy your spring.
Thank you, Julie.
You take care. That's our Around the Yard segment brought to you by Pave Stone and Quikrete. Hey, right now, we're talking Butcher Block. Jeannie is with us right now from Illinois. Welcome to the show, Jeannie.
Thank you.
All right, tell us about it. You sent a picture. We appreciate doing that. Beautiful kitchen. I'm sure that is a site of many a gourmet meal right there. And big preparation area, island right in the middle with a beautiful butcher block top, which a real butcher block top. That looks like a maple top or something. Really, really nice. What's concerning you with that?
Well, the house was built like 10 years ago, and they were told me, to just treat it, like mineral oil and keep it, clean and waxed up. But over the years, I don't always get that done on a regular schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw your show last week where they use the water lock.
Right.
And I'm kind of curious if I can use that on it, but because we have oiled it, is it still possible to do that? And, something that would seal it, and I wouldn't have to worry about trying to remember to oil it every year.
Sure. That makes sense. I can see you wanting to do that. And boy, that kitchen on the television show really turned out really well with that butcher block, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and
yes, it did.
And
nice.
It was funny. The homeowner there let us pick on him a little bit because he had started that project 20 years ago.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
And we picked on him the whole entire show on that. A good spirit. Well, Joe, what do you think when you have mineral oil in on a butcher block, which is an accepted way to provide some finish on it? What would you have to do in order to get the water lock to work out for you?
Yeah. Well, first, Jeannie, I have to ask: do you cut or chop on the butcher block?
Not a lot, no. I mean, a lot of times it's used for like getting stuff out of the oven, because it's right there, so I can pull it out and set it on it.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
fine.
usually use a cutting board.
Okay, good. Because that matters, because water locks is a tongue oil sealer, and it forms, I don't want to say a hard film, but it's not just an oil. It protects it with a thin film, and you don't want to be cutting into it because then you defeat the purpose. You'd be cutting through the water lock's protection. So yes, you can put water locks over that surface, but how long when was the last time you applied mineral oil?
It's probably
more than 30 days ago?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Good. If it was less than 30 days ago, you'd have to wait another 30 days. So what you have to do is scrub it with mineral spirits, right, which is basically paint thinner. And because you have to remove because the point is, if you put anything over this mineral oil and it comes through, it's going to ruin the surface. So you have to scrub it as hard as you can, as well as you can, to get all that mineral oil out. Let it dry after using the mineral spirits. Sand it lightly. Let it dry really well. And then once it's clean, then you can apply to water locks.
Okay. And how many coats?
2 would be more than enough. But if you go to waterlocks.com, and that's spelled LOX, waterlocks, they have a countertop guide, which describes how to apply it to countertops, specifically wood.
Oh.
And they actually have they have a section for previously finished wood applications, meaning how do you apply water locks to wood that's been previously finished with something. And there you'll find some more details, but that's basically the step. Those are basically the steps.
Okay. And then I could still take stuff out of the oven and set a pan there. It's not going to hurt it.
You just shouldn't cut
on it. Okay. That sounds good.
Well, good, Gene. Glad we were able to help you. Certainly appreciate you watching our television show each week. We've got a lot of brand new shows coming up, and we appreciate your loyalty there.
We record it every week because it's a little early for us.
Oh. Awesome. Well, good. Well, we certainly appreciate that. If we can help you any other way, let us know.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, our pleasure. Also wanted to mention that you can find out more about water locks and a lot of other things by going to woodcraft.com. One of our great sponsors, been with us a long time. And I'm telling you, if you're looking for a gift, or if you're looking for something for a serious woodworker or the novice DIYer or anything in between, woodcraft.com is a great way to go. It's great to work with professionals and people that really know their stuff. And then there's Joe, and you...
Somehow I saw that coming.
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what. When you work with someone like Joe, and I have worked with Joe for over 20 years, and he's always ready. He's always prepped. He's always in a good mood. That's a really, really good trait to have. But he always has something in their simple solution that you definitely can use. Joe, what do you have this week?
So I'm going to give you 3 quick ones. Here you go. Here's 3 quick, simple solutions. One is if you have exposed studs on the inside of your garage, whether a 2x4 or 2x6, just nail a horizontal board across. So if they're 2x4 studs, you nail a horizontal 2x4 in between. If it's 2x6s, that's even better. You nail a 2x6. And just, even though that's relatively short and not too deep, you'd be surprised how many cans, spray cans and cans of finish and fasteners, boxes of nails you could store on those. So you nail those between the studs, instant storage right there. Also, how to store long-handled garden tools. Here's one idea. Take a screw hook and screw it into overhead joist. Then you take a screw eye and screw it into the end of the handle. Then you just hang it right up. And the reason you don't use 2 hooks is if you have a hook on the end of the handle, you can catch yourself with it. So you put a screw eye into the tool handle and a hook in the ceiling. You just hang them up. This way they don't fall over into your car. And the last one, if you store bicycles in your garage, try this. You get 2 closet rod brackets, the metal brackets for usually you put in a closet, and you screw them to the wall, and you can hang your bike on the hooks.
Yeah.
And then the shelf and on the flat part where you usually have a closet shelf, you can put a short little board and you can store your helmet and your gloves and your riding gear like that. So there you go. 3 quick ideas for getting more storage out of your garage.
Well, see, all of these things, too, is about getting things up off the floor, which is so key to hang things on a wall, hang things overhead so that you have more floor space in your garage. And
they're not falling over all the time. That's the biggest problem in a garage.
And, if you utilize a number of these things, what could actually happen, you could actually park a vehicle in your garage. This is
you're just being silly.
That's a novel idea, isn't it? So it's just a novel idea.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal.
And now it's time for our podcast question of the week. And you can send us a question anytime that you have one that pops into your mind by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Luann from Michigan asked, why does my sump pump kick on every few minutes? Now, Joe, there's a lot of areas in the country that a lot of homeowners that, don't have any knowledge at all of sump pumps because they don't have them. A lot of areas don't have basements, but of course you guys in the Northeast have basements as much as possible.
That's right.
And a sump pump is an essential part of that. But what would be causing a sump pump just to short cycle like that?
Yeah, there's a couple of different reasons why it would keep kicking on. Now that we're assuming Luann's asking is because it's not continuously raining outside and she just has lots of water. It sounds like it's relatively dry, but it keeps running. There's basically 2 things. There's a check valve which should be in the line going out where the pipe is pumping, where the pump is forcing the water up and out, and that check valve is like a one-way door, right? It allows the water out, but if it drains back in, it blocks it. Because in almost every situation, it's pumping water up. And, only so much can go out, and then there's a little bit that drains back. If that check valve either is missing or not working, all that water from that pipe is draining back in, and that might be enough to trigger the pump to kick on. The pump thinks water's in so it pumps it out, and it drains back in. It pumps. So first check that valve. Then you can also, every pump has what's called a float range, which is how much water is in before it kicks on and how much water is removed when it turns off. So you can adjust that. There should be the pump should start when there's about 16 or 18 inches of water in the pit.
Right.
And it should go down to about 2 or 3 inches of water. People think, there's 2 or 3 inches of water in my sump pump. It's not working. Well, you want 2 or 3 inches. Otherwise, every time a teaspoon of water goes in there, the pump's going to kick on.
Right, exactly.
So you can adjust that. Don't raise the pump. That defeats the purpose. But you can check that float range and adjust it so that, I suspect in Luann's case, it might be that check valve. It sounds like water. It's pumping out, and then enough is draining back in that it's kicking the pump on. And then, of course, it keeps draining back in. So
there you go, Luann. A few things to consider there, a couple things to think about, and we appreciate your question here on the Today's Homeowner podcast. And again, you can send us one right now, todayshomeowner.com/podcast. And you can also drop by and maybe send us a good review here and there. That's the way the podcast world works, that more people tune in to your podcast when you have some favorable reviews. So we certainly appreciate the great reviews we got this week, and keep them coming, keep coming back, and certainly head over to todayshomeowner.com anytime that you can see some of the other things we're doing here at Today's Homeowner. Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this week's podcast. I'm Danny Lipford along with Joe Truini. We'll see you and talk to you real soon.